do we have to get beaten first? This is a question I've often asked myself, because it would seem that we no longer hear the cry of our brother who cries from yonder. Unless it's on our doorstep, unless it's happening to us, we don't respond. And it's a crying shame, because it's only with unity, with people unity, that we can stand up against abuse of power. I also complained to Buckingham Palace, and the letter that came back from Buckingham Palace, written directly on behalf of the Queen, said that the Queen could not intervene directly. However, she had given instructions that the matter should be passed to the then head of the judiciary, Lord Irvine. The letter went on to say, "I know he is already aware of your case, but now he will also be aware of your approach to Her Majesty on this matter." And Derry Irvine, and I can assure you that's why he got sacked in June 2003. I can assure you that this is why the Lord Chancellor's Department was abolished and replaced with Ministry of Justice. Derry Irvine did nothing. For there to be a black president in the United States of America today, yes, it took a lady brave enough to break a law, sitting down on a chair on a bus and saying, "I'm prepared to suffer the consequences for this, because right now I'm tired and I want to sit down and I ain't moving." Yeah, and that's what made it possible, I would say, for a black president to be in. How would I like the community to respond to this declaration? First and foremost, I wouldn't advocate people just turning around and saying, "Oh yeah, I heard this, brother," and I don't suggest that people would do that, because so far what everyone has heard probably seems unfathomable, unbelievable. So what I would invite people to do is to take their time. We have a website, www.ctjnet.co.uk. We would invite people to visit that website, try to make sense of what's there. We've done our best to give as much information as possible, and check it out and get in touch, and we can show you how you can be protected from harassment from the law.
How long were you in prison?
6 years and 1 month.
6 years for an unlawful conviction where you were refused the right of appeal.
Yeah.
The campaign continues.
Absolutely.
What have you been doing since you were released?
Since I've been released, I've been trying to spend as much time with my family as possible. I have a wonderful friend, brother Ahmed to me, who has kept the heat on as much as he possibly can whilst I've been inside. In fact, he's a person who heard this matter about 9 years ago on a community radio station, and since then he's thrown everything he's got behind it, emotionally, financially. I mean, whilst I was in prison, he provided me with about £4,000 worth of law books and so on. And I know that whilst there was a time I was at Scrubs, early part of this year, him and a couple of other sisters were out there every single Saturday in the freezing cold. I used to get officers coming in to me saying, "Mr. Grant, those people outside must really love you because it's really cold." They've done an awful lot to try and keep everything, and I think to some extent, I have to say this, I think to some extent, because of the input that they've had, it's kept me alive in more than one way. And because recently, whilst I was in prison, I understand Jack Straw was trying to pass a law where deaths in custody can be held behind closed doors with the exclusion of families and so forth and so on. Those deaths that they deem not in the interest or in the interest of national security. Initially, apparently, that was rejected, but now he's passed that law. So for me, that's passing a law that would give the state forgive me for being so explicit, to murder legitimately, or to murder inside and then say not in the national interest to have this in public. And we know that there are laws, many laws that they have, which is for a specific purpose, but then get abused and used for other things. So I suspect maybe if I was to spend another 6 years in prison, I probably wouldn't come out alive, because my parents and friends and so on would not be able to demand a kind of any kind of public inquest. How can we get black men in general, how can we get anyone to act in such a bold way? First and foremost, we have to dismiss ignorance. we have to start using intelligence. And when you know what your rights are, and you demand those rights, which you have a right to do. You don't have to, because the state says this or the state says that, that doesn't make them right. So if anybody has suffered a violation of their right, they're entitled to stand up for those rights according to law. Look, if this country can be sending young men and women to go and die in places like Afghanistan for truth and justice, for human rights and so forth, and then make the ultimate sacrifice, those rights that those soldiers, young soldiers, die for us to be able to enjoy, is worth standing up for. So we have to stand up for them. And as I said, whether young black men or young men of any race, if your rights are violated, you have the right to stand up and say no, that you're not going to accept it.
Absolutely. I will, as we need to draw the interview conversation to a close now, Caul, I thank you. I thank you. As you know, I have gone over my time, and but it doesn't matter, because we have some more wonderful activities for you here this evening. Kimber will join us shortly. Having said that, it has been not so much a departure, but it has been a move away from the normal format. This is the first time that I personally have explored something as passionate, as important as this. I really appreciate Caul coming in to share his experiences with us and helping to enlighten us as to what goes on beyond what we see, beyond what we hear, beyond what we read. And it is important that we must move forward confident, optimistic, and resolute that justice will prevail.
It is almost like we're in a war with the state, and it's only fair if we're relying on the law, the letter of the law. I'm not talking about the administrators of the law, the letter of the law. It's only fair that we in advance give a warning, as we've done in our declaration, as to our position, so that if the state should then decide to come at us in what we might regard as an attack, then we've made it absolutely clear that we demand the right to protect ourselves. Now, I would imagine that if you were to engage in war, you are at the very least going to give your opponent an opportunity to cease, to surrender. So we feel we've acted reasonably, despite the unreasonable action and unlawful actions taken against us. We feel we still hold enough dignity and integrity to stand up and make this declaration to the state without fear, and knowing that they cannot do anything to us. And I'm mighty, mighty proud to be in such a position, and those associated with Campaign for Truth and Justice, that we are in such a position where we can go out there and not fear the law.